warm welcome to this special conversation on the Squirrels. Today is a milestone day because it's the Prime Minister's 75th birthday. It's also a milestone moment in our country's polity because on one hand there is so much of conversation about the great work which has been done on infrastructure development, but then on the other there are also some valid concerns which are being raised about just how, while there is infrastructure development which is taking place, how much money is being spent by political parties in our country purely as freebies just ahead of elections. These two strands of our polity and our economy, how do they coexist with each other? With me, the remarkable political economist, our dear friend Shankkar Aiyar, joins us live, written many books, spends his time across the length and breadth of the world. Great pleasure as always, Shankkar, to have you with us today on the Squirrels. So Shankkar, let me first begin by asking you. You've tracked Narendra Modi's career as a journalist, as an author for so long. Today, on his 75th birthday, when there is like a carpet bombing of sorts of events, how do you rate him? Do you really think he's changed the way we looked at politics? How is it different from any other prime minister that you may have seen?
I think on his 75th birthday, it could be safely said that his is an evolving story. And you see sides of him that you don't see in other politicians. But primarily, I think what will stand out after him is what he has done for financial inclusion in terms of Aadhaar and the digital payments domain. What he has done for rural electrification. And then there are some others who would argue that GST and the insolvency and bankruptcy codes are the reforms that he has pushed through. This startling thing about him is that when he puts his political capital and his name, then things get done. And Bhupen, you know this government is short of talent and capacity. For 10 years, we've seen this. The ministerial talent isn't superior or anything. But when he puts his shoulder behind a program, for instance, Jan Dhan, he wrote to all the bank officers. Then in rural electrification, he got Piyush Goyal to sort of keep a transparency index, how many villages are being electrified. He tried the same thing in the water supply, Har Ghar Jal thing, not that successful. So there are places where he has put his might, and there are surprisingly many places where he has not. For instance, his farm laws may have been controversial, but they were necessary. I still believe that they were a good move. But maybe he brought it, it was done in the wrong way. The BJP runs 15, 16 states in coalition or on its own. None of the states have adopted it. Same with labor laws. So there are some surprising elements to his legacy, and there are some very positive achievements.
You say, there was Manmohan Singh, was a world-renowned economist between 2004 and 2014. Then there is Narendra Modi, who positions himself as a chaiwala, as this common man who's come this way. Purely from a political economy lens, how would you rate the performance of these two, Manmohan Singh versus Narendra Modi?
I think when we look at it through the lens of a personality, Bhupen, we are doing a disservice to
absolutely. No, I'm not on the personality
1.4
part.
billion people.
I'm not on the personality part at all. I'm only on the understanding and the implementation of economic models.
So the economic model of Manmohan Singh was more consultative and therefore yielded ground to many things that shouldn't have happened. In the Narendra Modi model, there is a decision which is sort of marketed, which is, for instance, the GST reforms that happened now. I think it was his single point agenda that he will do this to bring back some demand, bring back feel good factor. And then he left the system to sort of achieve his goal. So that is his model. So there is a lot of difference in that. The context also changes. Manmohan Singh suffered high petroleum prices in 3 out of is 9 or 10 years, I think $100 plus petroleum prices. That sort of wrecked the economy and the currency. Mr. Modi, when he came in his first year, he had 100 plus dollars crude oil. And I'm saying highlighting the crude oil thing, Bhupel, because this is the single largest import item on our balance of payment schedule. And 88% of our petroleum energy requirements we import. We even import coal. So when you look at, and Manmohan Singh had the benefit of global growth, Modi's tenure hasn't been that lucky in that sense, because you had demonetization, GST, you had the pandemic, and then you have this Russia-Ukraine war, now the tariff war. So there is a lot of uncertainty that he has navigated, and so that stands out to also the navigation of many uncertainties.
Okay, let's then look at the other side, Shankkar. While on one hand we will say that it's a navigation of all these global uncertainties, which Narendra Modi has done rather deftly. But let's look at the actual political meat here. Over the last 5 to 6 years, if you see how the electoral system in India is changing, where pretty much whether it's a Mamata Banerjee ruled state or a Devendra Fadnavis ruled state or a Hemant Soren ruled state, every state in India today is running mass freebie oriented programs, which has now come all the way down to Bihar, which still remains one of the poorest states, which still remains a state where the level of manufacturing is practically next to zero. And yet, even in this state, a commitment has been made by the ruling NDA, which, by the way, has been in power in this state, barring a spell of, I think, 2 short years when Nitish and Lalu were together, for almost 20 years. After 20 years of an NDA government, after 11 years of a Modi government, we are still talking about giving 10,000 rupees to women in the state of Bihar, much like what Ladki Behan was, the scheme in Maharashtra, or in Hemant Soren's case in Jharkhand that I was talking about. How does this fit with this story that Indian economy is growing on one hand, but we're running the largest food subsidy campaign in the history of the world, perhaps 80 crore people being given free food, and now states coming up with their own similar versions as well. What does this tell you about the state of India's political economy or the state of Indian electoral system?
I have this thesis that India's governments deal with consequences better than they deal with causes. The cause of any problem they can't deal with because the political task is too hard. But dealing with the consequence is easier. So we have a real problem in agricultural distress, in farmers, viability of farming. So Andhra Pradesh and Odisha came up with some Kisan assistance program that got nationalized into the PM-KISAN Yojana. We haven't fixed the problem in the agriculture, which whatever the access of markets, imports, whatever, you see the queues for urea just now. So something or the other is always an issue. Similarly, we have a problem with employment. So we create programs around it. We have a problem of jobs, so we have a problem of income, which is why we have a problem of consumption. So we create programs like Ladki Behan, deliver money into the hands of the women of the household, which is the positive part of it. But this is generally the trend. So if you look back at history, N.T. Ramarao came up with this idea of 2 rupees a kilo rice during his 1983 campaign when he became the chief minister of Andhra Pradesh first. That became a national program. And then Punjab adopted the 2 rupees atta wala scheme under Akali Dal, and that became a national program. Punjab made power free for farmers. That became a national issue. Maharashtra, for instance, till the last 20 years back, resisted the idea of free power. Now everybody is giving free power, not only to the farmers, but also to households. So there are large number of states which are giving free power to households, 100 units. And Bihar, I think, is 125 units. This is the promise. Other states are giving 300 units, 500 units. Where is it all? The annual losses to state electricity board is in the region of 70,000 crores. So, this is why, because we are giving such free power, we charge the commercial establishments higher power, which makes them less
But can I ask you,
competitive.
Shankkar, can I ask you that,
Hmm.
are we managing to give all these units of free electricity, like in Bihar's case, 125 units of free electricity and all the other states that you were talking about? I want to understand from you in simple terms, does it show that our economy is doing greatly and so we can spend all this money on mass subsidies? Or does it show that our economy is doing very poorly and people do not have the money to spend and hence the government has to step in?
So the simple arithmetic, the algebra formula that you have to remember when we look at India's economy is 46% of the workforce in India, which is around. So we have a total workforce of about 900 million or 1 billion people, depending on how much who gives the data. So फर्क करो कि 90 करोड़ लोग आपका workforce है.
Right.
Now these 90 crore people, out of this 46%, which is roughly 500 million people, are involved in agriculture or agriculture related activities. What is the output of the agriculture and agriculture related activities is 16% of the GDP, which means that nearly half your workforce lives on 1/6 of the national income. This is simply not a sustainable model. So therefore, governments have to address this issue. So you have various schemes. So currently, India runs the largest food security program covering over 800 million people. It runs the largest healthcare program covering over 500 million people. It runs the largest rural employment program covering nearly 300 million people. The number of women covered across states is depends on the data points, but the state governments of India are spending something close to 2.5 to 3 lakh crores on these cash benefit transfers. The Kisan transfers are a separate story. So if you look at it, there are two economies or maybe three economies in India. The top 5% or 10% of the people in the pyramid, if you look at it, they live off rent that they derive from the system. Okay, the growth that happens. The middle class is the middle class, and the bottom half, they leverage their voting power to survive in the system.
That's where the transaction comes into play. That's where the political transaction comes.
Yeah.
The government gives you money, you give the government vote. That's a simple story.
So it's like a one-time transfer every 5 years or 3 years, whatever happens. So the governments in center sort of create the room for the states to act. The states create the pressure on the center to adopt some of their schemes. So this is how it flows. Basically, what this means is that we have not expanded our economy. I mean, manufacturing is actually lower than agriculture in the country, just 12% of the GDP, whereas agriculture is nearly 16% of the GDP. We have not expanded that economy. We have not built around it. So we have to simply take care of the people. So there is that part of it. But this could be done regardless of the elections. You could have programs like Ayushman Bharat, which is the healthcare thing, is addressing of the consequence, because you're unable to fix the rural healthcare and the urban healthcare government healthcare program. So you have the insurance, so that people who are ill, who don't get primary access to healthcare, जब बहुत बीमार हो जाएगा तो अस्पताल जाएगा, सरकार पैसे देगी. That is the theory there. Similarly, in rural employment, Narega is what? I can't create jobs in UP or Bihar or Jharkhand or whatever. So 100 days in a year, I give you. What is the calculus of the 100 days? The 100 days wages used to cover the monthly ration at one time. 12 months ration. If you work for 100 days, you can buy 12 months ration from the government. Now, of course, it's free. So this has created another aspect that merits attention. So if you were a young person living in, say, Balia in Uttar Pradesh or Araria in Bihar, and your family gets free ration, you get free health coverage, you get 100 days of employment. If you have two women or one woman in the household, you get some cash benefit transfers. Your terms of engagement to go and work in another state, say Mumbai or Chennai or Bangalore, have completely changed now. Which is why you see the infrastructure company officials, the chief executives of L&T and others saying that they don't get staff to put up the infrastructure project. So this has other hazards that are playing out now. My primary trouble, my trouble with this whole freebie thing is, people have called it helicopter economics and stuff. I have called it flyover economics. I have called it Robin Hood politics, all kinds of it. But this is essentially nationalization of costs and privatization of power. All the states, most of the states, the parties are simply family-run enterprises. The BJP is, you can call it a conglomerate. The Congress is in a universe of its own. So, all of these states, there is no disputing that people are in trouble and distress and they need help. But how does a country go about doing this is a question.
So here's my poser then, Shankkar. If this is the story, people were in distress and people are in distress, and a section of the people shall continue to remain in distress. Let's say, India can become a Vishwa Guru, or Amrit Kal can come now till 2047. Does it essentially mean that no matter what you do, no matter who's in power, no matter what are the policies, basically what you're saying, nationalization of cost and privatization of assets, if I was to say that this is the emergence of a new caste in Indian politics, which is that no matter what you do, no matter what your performance, you have to throw money at people before elections. Is that now pretty much an inevitable scenario, a ballpark scenario, a fixed scenario for Indian politics, according to you?
That's an interesting question. I haven't looked at the electoral data in that splinter, but my intuition is that this is an add-on. You will see voting on caste basis because candidates are chosen on caste basis. Regardless, there is no party innocent of the caste politics here.
Sure.
So even the choice of chief ministers and others is all caste based. There is no question. The small time experiment in Gujarat proved that you can't keep Patels out of power. So we know the story there. I think beyond this, you might have caste, you might have religion, you might have ideology, but on top of it, people want some benefit to accrue to them every 5 years whenever the election happens. And this is being seen in Tamil Nadu and in a sense in Punjab, Tamil Nadu. These are frontal states, pioneer states in this kind of economics. And regardless of who is contesting or who comes to power, these programs are run. The remarkable consensus in India is for weak reforms that shows up also because you're not addressing the issues that need to be addressed. Would you be spending this kind of money on these kind of programs if you had addressed some of these issues? If this kind of money was spent on the programs, you might get better yield on your GDP and better job creation. So
I think I hear you very clearly, Shankkar, when you say that Indian politicians, by training, are more adept at dealing with consequences rather than actually trying to fend off for what is coming in there. All right, let's see with that, Shankkar. Always a pleasure speaking to you. Thank you so much for joining us and giving us a very, very exhaustive and clear-cut picture. Freebies, call it social security, call it political intervention, constructive intervention. These are here to stay. You could be in West Bengal, you could be in UP, you could be in the national capital or in Maharashtra. It's not going anywhere. So stay ready, get ready for more of these freebies. Part and parcel.
One thing, Bhupen, you could add.
Yeah.
Just as flyovers are being built all over the country and highways are being built all over the country, freebies are the flyovers and highways to power.
Okay, that's a good line. That's a good way to look at the situation. Thank you. Thanks for your time, sir. Thank you.